She was broke, desperate, and out of options. He was a Russian mafia boss with 3 demon children who'd destroyed 47 nannies in 18 months. Nobody could control the triplets. Nobody could last more than a week, until she walked through the door, and the moment his children saw her face, they went completely, inexplicably silent. Some connections can't be explained. Some bonds transcend memory. And some secrets have been buried for 5 years. Comment "Bring it" if you're ready for the most emotional nanny story you've ever read. Subscribe before you start. Nanny number 47 lasted 6 hours. Dmitry Volkov watched through the security camera feed as the woman, a stern British matron with 30 years of experience and references from 3 royal families, fled his penthouse in tears. Her carefully pinned hair had come undone, her designer suit was covered in what appeared to be maple syrup, paint, and something he sincerely hoped was chocolate. The triplets stood in the doorway, perfectly angelic, waving goodbye. "Bye, Miss Margaret," his daughter Mira called sweetly. "We'll miss you," added Luca, the oldest by 4 minutes. "Please come back," finished Alexei, the baby of the 3, his gray eyes wide and innocent. The door slammed, the elevator dinged, and the moment the nanny was gone, all 3 children burst into triumphant laughter. "That's 47, Mira announced, consulting the tally marks she'd drawn on her bedroom wall. "New record," Luca high-fived his siblings. "She didn't even make it to lunch." "I told you the fake spider in her suitcase would work," Alexei said proudly. Dmitry closed his laptop and pinched the bridge of his nose. He was 34 years old, head of the Volkov organization, a man who could make international criminals wet themselves with a single phone call. He controlled shipping routes, real estate empires, and politicians across 3 continents. But he could not control his own 5-year-old children. "Mr. Volkov?" His assistant, Irina, appeared in his office doorway, her face carefully neutral. "The agency called. They're declining to send any more candidates." Declining? They said, and I quote, "Your children are unholy terrors, and we no longer in good conscience subject childcare professionals to psychological warfare." Dmitry's jaw tightened. "They said that?" "Those were the polite parts, sir." He stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Moscow. His penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the Volkov Tower, all steel, glass, and security that would make Fort Knox jealous. It was a fortress, a palace, and increasingly a prison, because he couldn't leave his children unsupervised, couldn't attend meetings or handle business or do anything that required him to be more than 50 feet away from the triplets. They'd been expelled from 3 preschools, regular daycares refused them, and nannies, God, the nannies. "What's the count now?" he asked quietly. 47 nannies in 18 months, sir, plus 12 au pairs, 8 governesses, and that one extremely unfortunate incident with the Montessori teacher. Dmitry closed his eyes. "We don't talk about the Montessori teacher." "No, sir." The triplets were brilliant, beautiful, and absolutely feral. They had Dmitry's gray eyes and dark hair. They were coordinated, clever, and completely devoted to each other. They were also grieving, though they'd never admit it, and taking out that grief on every adult who tried to replace their mother. Not that anyone could replace Katerina. His wife had died in childbirth. Rare complication, the doctor said. 1 in a million. She'd delivered 3 healthy babies and then simply slipped away. Dmitry had been left with newborn triplets and a grief so profound he still couldn't look at her pictures without feeling like he was drowning. The children didn't remember her. They'd been too young. But they knew somehow. Knew that something was missing. Someone was missing, and they'd decided that if they couldn't have their real mother, they didn't want any substitute. "There has to be someone," Dmitri said. "Someone in this city who can handle 3 5-year-olds." Irina cleared her throat delicately. "There is one more option, but you're not going to like it. Try me. There's a woman, no formal training, no references, no experience with children at all, but she's desperate, very desperate, and she's willing to work for half the usual rate." Dmitri turned. "Why would I hire someone with no qualifications?" "Because, sir, everyone with qualifications has already quit." "Fair point." "Fine," he said. "Send her up. What's the worst that could happen?" Elena Morrison stood outside Volkov Tower and seriously questioned her life choices. This was insane. She had 0 childcare experience. She'd never even babysat as a teenager. She was a graphic designer, or had been before the economy tanked and her entire industry imploded. Now she was broke, 3 months behind on rent, and staring at an eviction notice that gave her exactly 1 week to come up with 50,000 rubles or end up on the street. The job posting was her Hail Mary. Live-in nanny needed immediately, private employer, competitive salary, experience preferred but not required, must be brave. Must be brave? What kind of nanny job required bravery? But the salary listed was enough to pay back her rent, clear her debts, and actually save money for the first time in years. So here she was, in her only professional outfit, a black dress she'd owned since university, clutching a folder of character references she'd hastily assembled from her landlord, her former boss, and a neighbor who'd once watched her water plants for a week. She took a breath and pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was obscene, all marble and gold and modern art that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. Security guards watched her with the dead-eyed stare of men who'd make international criminals wet themselves with a single phone call. She was out of her depth, and she knew the security guards knew it too. Seen and done things they'd never talk about. She approached the desk with what she hoped looked like confidence. "Elena Morrison, I have an interview with Mr. Volkov." The receptionist, a beautiful woman with ice blonde hair and a face that betrayed no emotion, picked up a phone, spoke in rapid Russian, hung up. "Top floor, they're expecting you." The elevator ride took forever. Elena watched the numbers climb, 10, 20, 30, 40, and tried to calm her racing heart. She'd researched Dmitri Volkov last night, tech mogul, real estate developer, philanthropist. Also, according to less reputable sources, former member of the Bratva, with connections to organizations that didn't officially exist. In other words, dangerous. But Elena had run out of safe options approximately 3 months ago. The elevator doors opened directly into a penthouse that looked like something from an architecture magazine. The woman who'd called her, Irina, was waiting. "Miss Morrison, thank you for coming. Before we begin, I need you to understand something." Irina's face was serious. "The children are difficult, very difficult. In the last 18 months, 47 nannies have quit. Some lasted days, some lasted hours, one lasted 17 minutes. Elena swallowed. What happened? The triplets are extremely intelligent and extremely coordinated. They've developed what can only be described as psychological warfare tactics. They're not violent. Mr. Volkov would never tolerate that. But they are creative and relentless, and they will do everything in their power to make you quit. Why? Irina's expression softened slightly. Because they miss their mother, and they've decided that if they drive away enough replacements, maybe she'll come back. Elena's heart cracked. She knew that feeling, that desperate, magical thinking that if you just wished hard enough, if you just refused to accept reality, maybe the universe would rewind and give you back what you'd lost. "I understand," she said quietly. "Do you?" Irina studied her, because understanding and surviving are very different things. Are you sure you want to do this? Elena thought about the eviction notice, the empty fridge, the calls from creditors she'd stopped answering. She thought about being 5 years old and wishing her own mother would come back from wherever she disappeared to. "I'm sure," she said. Irina nodded. "Then let's meet the children." The playroom was a war zone. Toys everywhere, books scattered like casualties, walls painted with what Elena really hoped was washable lacquer. And in the center of the chaos, 3 identical children sat in a perfect triangle formation, staring at the door like tiny generals planning a campaign. They were beautiful. Dark hair, pale skin, enormous gray eyes that tracked Elena's every movement with unsettling intensity. They wore matching clothes, probably to confuse people about who was who, and sat with identical postures, hands folded in laps, faces expressionless. It was creepy and adorable in equal measure. "Children," Irina said, "this is Miss Morrison. She's here to interview for the nanny position." 3 pairs of gray eyes blinked in unison. "Hello," Elena said, crouching down to their level. "I must be the triplets. I'm Elena." Silence. "Not going to tell me your names?" Elena smiled. "That's okay. I'll figure it out." More silence. Then the child on the left, a girl, Elena thought, based on the slightly longer hair, tilted her head. "Are you scared of us?" the girl asked. Elena considered lying, considered saying something professional and reassuring. Instead, she told the truth. "A little bit," she admitted. "I heard you're pretty good at making adults run away." The middle child, a boy with a small scar on his chin, narrowed his eyes. "We're the best. Nobody lasts. Nobody ever stays." "That must be exhausting," Elena said. All 3 children blinked, surprised. "What?" the girl said. "Having to come up with new ways to scare people all the time? That's a lot of work, a lot of planning. Don't you ever get tired?" The children exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this response. "We're not tired," the smallest boy said, defensively. "We're very good at it." "I can tell. You're extremely coordinated. The way you all blinked at the same time, that's impressive. You've clearly practiced." The girl's lips twitched, almost a smile. "What's your name?" she asked Elena. "I told you, Elena Morrison." "Where are you from?" "Originally, a small town you've never heard of, but I've lived in Moscow for 6 years." "Why do you want to be our nanny?" the boy with the scar asked, his eyes suspicious. Elena decided to keep being honest. "Because I need money. I'm about to be evicted from my apartment, and this job pays enough to keep me off the streets. So I'm not going to pretend I'm here because I love children or because I have some magical calling to childcare. I need this job, and you need someone who won't quit after you put fake spiders in your suitcase." Dead silence. Then all 3 children looked at each other, some wordless communication passing between them. The smallest boy stood up and walked toward Elena. He stopped right in front of her, gray eyes searching her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You look familiar," he said quietly. Elena's heart skipped. "I don't think we've met before." "No," he said slowly, "but you look like someone from my dreams." Before Elena could respond, the playroom door opened and a man walked in. Elena knew it was Dmitry Volkov immediately, not because she recognized him from her research, but because the entire energy of the room shifted. The children's attention snapped to him. The air seemed to compress. This was a man who commanded space just by existing. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair graying at the temples, sharp cheekbones, and those same gray eyes his children had inherited. He wore an expensive suit with casual ease, and he moved with the controlled grace of someone trained in combat. He was handsome in that brutal, unapproachable way that came with power and violence. And he was staring at Elena like he'd seen a ghost. "You," he said, his voice rough. "I know you." Elena stood slowly. "I don't think we've met, Mr. Volkov." "No." He moved closer, his eyes scanning her face. "But I've seen your face. He stopped abruptly, his expression shutting down. Forgive me, you must remind me of someone. The smallest boy tugged on Elena's dress. Papa, can she stay? Dimitri's gaze snapped to his son. What? Can Miss Elena stay? The girl asked. We like her. She's honest, the boy with the scar added. She told us she needs money. Nobody else told us the truth. Dimitri looked between his children and Elena, clearly shocked. In 18 months, his children had never asked for a nanny to stay. They'd never liked anyone. They'd made it their mission to destroy every adult who walks through that door. And now they're asking for this woman, this stranger with no qualifications, to stay. Dimitri seemed genuinely at a loss for words. Children, could you give me a moment alone with Miss Morrison? The triplets exchanged glances, then nodded and filed out of the playroom with unusual obedience. The door closed. Dimitri turned to Elena, and she saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. Who are you? I told you, Elena Morrison. I'm a graphic designer, was a graphic designer. I saw your job posting. That's not what I mean. He moved closer, and Elena fought the urge to step back. My children don't trust anyone. They don't like anyone. They've spent 18 months terrorizing every adult who walks through that door. And you've been here 10 minutes, and they're asking you to stay. So I'll ask again. Who are you? Elena met his gaze steadily. I'm nobody, just someone who needs a job. Nobody is just someone, Dimitri said, softly, dangerously. Everyone has a story. So what's yours, Elena Morrison? Elena's hands trembled, but she kept her voice level. My story is that I'm broke, desperate, and apparently one of the only people in Moscow your children don't want to torture. If that's not enough qualification for you, I'll leave, but I need this job, Mr. Volkov. And I think your children need someone who isn't going to run at the first sign of difficulty. Dimitri studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, his expression softened. You're not scared of me, he observed. I'm terrified of you, Elena corrected, but I'm more scared of being homeless. So fear isn't really a useful emotion right now. He almost smiled. Almost. The job is live-in. You'd have your own quarters on this floor. You'd be responsible for the children's daily care, education, meals, and activities. You'd accompany us on trips. You'd be on call essentially 24/7. In exchange, you'd receive a salary of 200,000 rubles per month, plus room and board, plus full benefits. Elena's breath caught. That was 4 times what she'd been making as a designer. There's one condition, Dimitri continued. 2 weeks trial. If at any point during those 2 weeks I feel you're not right for my children, you're gone. No severance, no references. But if you make it through the 2 weeks, the position is yours for as long as you want it. And if your children decide to drive me away, then you'll join the other 47 nannies in failure. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss Morrison? Elena looked at his hand, looked at the door where 3 children were probably listening, thought about her eviction notice and her empty bank account, and the life she'd lost. We have a deal, she said, and shook his hand. The moment their hands touched, something electric shot through her. Dimitri felt it too. She saw his eyes widen fractionally, but then the connection broke, and he was all business again. Irina will show you to your room. You start tomorrow. Don't disappoint me, Miss Morrison. I won't, Elena promised. She had no idea if she was lying. She got the job, the impossible job, the job that destroyed 47 nannies. And the children, they want her to stay. They've never wanted anyone to stay. But there's something wrong, something she can't see yet. Why do the children look at her like they know her? Why does Dimitri stare at her face like he's seen a ghost? Why did the smallest boy say, "You look like someone from my dreams"? Because Elena Morrison has a secret, a 5-year-old secret, and it's about to surface. Share with someone who loves secret baby nanny tropes. Hit subscribe because the main story is about to start. Trust me, what happens next will break you. Elena moved into the Volkov penthouse at dawn. She didn't have much to move. 2 suitcases of clothes, a laptop that barely worked, and a shoebox of personal items she couldn't bear to throw away. Irina had arranged for her things to be picked up from her old apartment, which meant Elena didn't have to face her landlord or explain where she was going. Small mercies. Her new quarters were absurd. A bedroom bigger than her entire previous apartment, with an ensuite bathroom that had heated floors and a shower with enough jets to simulate a rainstorm. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Moscow, a sitting area with a couch that probably costs more than her car, a walk-in closet that was currently very, very empty. It was beautiful, it was overwhelming, and it felt like living in someone else's life.
Elena unpacked quickly. It didn't take long when you owned almost nothing, and tried to mentally prepare for her first day. The triplets had been eerily docile yesterday, but that didn't mean they'd stay that way. They'd probably just been sizing her up, planning their attack strategy. A knock on her door. Elena opened it to find all 3 children standing in a perfect line, already dressed, hair combed, faces serious. "Good morning, Miss Elena," they said in unison. It was creepy. Also adorable. Mostly creepy. "Good morning," Elena said carefully. "Did you all come to wake me up?" "Papa said we should introduce ourselves properly," the girl said. "I'm Mira. I'm 5 years old. I like art and books and making plans." "I'm Luca," the boy with the scar said. "I'm 5 years old and 4 minutes older than everyone else. I like building things and taking things apart and knowing how everything works." "I'm Alexei," the smallest boy said softly. "I'm 5 years old and the baby. I like music and animals and—" He trailed off, looking at Elena with those unsettling gray eyes. "And I like you." Elena's heart clenched. "Well, I like all of you too." "Even though we're terrors?" Mira asked innocently. "Even though you're terrors." "We made the last nanny cry in 4 hours," Luca said proudly. "We put fake vomit in her lunch." "We told Miss Margaret there were ghosts in the bathroom," Alexei added. "She got so scared she ran away." "We once convinced a nanny that Papa was a vampire," Mira said, grinning. "She quit during her first night." Elena crouched down to their level. "Those are all very impressive, but here's the thing. I'm not scared of fake vomit or ghosts or vampires, and I'm not going to quit just because you try to scare me. So you can either waste your energy trying to make me leave, or you can show me what you like to do for fun." The triplets looked at each other, that wordless communication happening again. "What if we like scaring people?" Luca challenged. "Then I'll teach you better scare tactics," Elena said, "because fake vomit is amateur hour. If you really want to terrify someone, you need psychology, subtlety, long game planning." All 3 children's eyes lit up. "You'll help us scare people?" Mira asked, delighted. "I didn't say that," Elena said quickly. "I said if you're going to do it, you should do it well. But maybe we could redirect that creative energy into something less likely to give your father a heart attack." "Papa doesn't get scared," Alexei said matter-of-factly. "Papa is the scariest person in Moscow." "Then he doesn't need scary children too," Elena said. "He needs children who are smart and creative and kind." "We're not kind," Luca said flatly. "You haven't had much practice," Elena countered, "but I bet you could be. Want to try?" Before they could answer, Dimitri's voice echoed from somewhere down the hall. "Children, breakfast." The triplets took off running, and Elena followed at a more sedate pace, trying to memorize the penthouse layout. The dining room was enormous, all glass and steel, with a table that could seat 20. Dimitri sat at the head, reading something on his tablet, dressed in another expensive suit. He looked up as Elena entered, his gray eyes scanning her with that same unsettling intensity. "Miss Morrison, I trust you slept well?" "Very well, thank you." "Good. The children eat breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. They're on a strict schedule. Any deviation and they become," he searched for the word, "feral." "We're not feral," Mira protested, climbing into her chair. "We're spirited." "You're feral," Dimitri said without malice. "Miss Morrison, the children's meals are prepared by our chef, but you'll be responsible for making sure they actually eat instead of using their food as art supplies." Elena glanced at the triplets, who were arranging their pancakes into some kind of fortress. Understood. Breakfast was surprisingly normal. The children ate, mostly. They chattered about a TV show they'd watched. Mira showed Elena a drawing she'd made. Alexei asked if they could get a puppy. Dmitri said no. Luca explained in elaborate detail how elevators worked. It was nice. Chaotic and loud and messy, but nice. Dmitri watched the whole thing with an expression Elena couldn't read. When breakfast ended, he stood. I have meetings all day. Irina will be available if you need anything. The children's schedule is on the refrigerator. Miss Morrison, he paused, those gray eyes fixing on her. If anything happens, anything at all, you call me immediately. Understood? Understood. He looked at his children. Behave. Miss Morrison is not to be tormented. Yes, Papa, they chorused, far too innocently. Dmitri left, and Elena was alone with 3 5-year-olds who'd destroyed 47 previous caretakers. So, Mira said brightly, want to see our room? The triplet suite was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. 3 beds, 3 desks, 3 wardrobes, everything color-coded. Mira's side was purple, covered in drawings and books. Luca's was blue, filled with building blocks and mechanical toys. Alexei's was green, with stuffed animals and a small keyboard. But what caught Elena's attention was the wall between the beds. It was covered in photographs, not the kind displayed in frames, but the kind taped haphazardly, edges curling, some faded. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all of the same woman. She was beautiful, delicate features, long dark hair, warm smile. In some photos, she was pregnant, very pregnant with 3 triplets probably. In others, she was holding 3 newborn babies, her face radiant with joy and exhaustion. The children's mother. That's Mama, Alexei said softly, appearing at Elena's elbow. We don't remember her, but Papa says she loved us very much.
Elena's throat tightened. She looks wonderful. Papa doesn't talk about her, Mira said, joining them. He gets sad. We can see it even though he tries to hide it. We used to ask about her all the time, Luca added, but it made him too sad, so we stopped asking. We just look at the pictures instead. Elena's heart was breaking. These children, so coordinated in their chaos, were just grieving kids trying to understand the mother they'd never known. I bet she'd be very proud of you, Elena said gently. She'd probably think we're terrors, Mira said, pragmatically. Maybe, but she'd still love you. The 3 children crowded closer to Elena, all staring at the wall of photographs. And for a moment, they weren't little terrors. They were just sad, confused kids missing something they'd never had. Alexei tugged on Elena's hand. Miss Elena? Yes? Do you think... He hesitated. Do you think if we're really good, Mama might come back? Oh, God. Elena knelt down, eye level with all 3 children. I think your mama loved you so much that she would come back if she could. But sometimes people can't come back, no matter how much they want to. And that's not because of anything you did or didn't do. It's just how life works sometimes. That's not fair, Luca said fiercely. No, Elena agreed. It's not fair at all. They stood in silence, 4 people mourning different things. Then Mira grabbed Elena's hand. Come on, we'll show you our favorite hiding spot. The next few hours were a whirlwind. The children showed Elena their hiding spot, behind a false panel in the library. They demonstrated their scare tactics, increasingly creative. They tested her patience, constantly, and her knowledge. Random questions about everything. They were exhausting and brilliant and absolutely chaotic. But they weren't mean, not to Elena. Every time they started planning some elaborate prank, they'd pause and ask, will this make you quit? And Elena would say, no, but it might make your father ground you for life. And they'd reconsider. It was around 2 p.m. when Elena noticed something strange. The children kept walking past one particular door. They'd slow down, glance at it, and then hurry away. Every time, like clockwork. What's in there? Elena finally asked. All 3 children froze. Nothing, Mira said quickly, too quickly. Just storage, Luca added. We're not allowed, Alexei whispered. Elena looked at the door. It was identical to all the other doors in the penthouse. Expensive wood, brass handle, unremarkable. except for one thing. It had a keypad lock. Why aren't you allowed? The children exchanged glances. Papa keeps it locked, Mira said quietly. He says it's private, that we can never go in there. He gets very upset if we even ask about it, Luca added. One time I put my ear against the door. Papa caught me. He didn't yell, but he looked so sad. I never tried again. Elena's curiosity was piqued. What did Dmitry Volkov keep in a locked room that made his children so nervous? But before she could think too hard about it, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "How's your first day, Miss Morrison?" Elena frowned. "Mr. Volkov? I want updates. Are my children behaving?" "Define behaving. Are they terrorizing you?" "They showed me their wall of scare tactics. Very impressive. Currently, they're teaching me about elevator mechanics." "That sounds like Luca. He's very detailed." "That's one word for it. I'll be home at 6 for dinner. Don't let them destroy anything expensive. No promises." Elena smiled despite herself. Then she looked up and realized all 3 children were staring at her. "Why are you smiling at your phone?" Mira asked suspiciously. "Your father wanted to know if you're behaving." "What did you tell him?" Luca asked. "That you're terrors but manageable." All 3 children grinned. "We like you, Miss Elena," Alexei said seriously. "Please don't leave." "I'm not planning on it." And Elena realized with some surprise that she meant it. Dinner was tense.
Dmitry arrived home exactly at 6, as promised. He changed out of his suit into more casual clothes, dark jeans and a gray sweater that somehow made him look even more dangerous, and joined them at the table. The children were on their best behavior. Perfect posture, please and thank you, no food fights or pancake fortresses. It was unsettling. Dmitry noticed too. His eyes kept flicking between his children and Elena, clearly suspicious. "So," he said finally, "how was your first day, Miss Morrison?" "Eventful. The children are very creative." "That's one word for them. They showed me their room and their photo wall." Dmitry's expression shut down. "I see. They clearly miss their mother very much." "They don't remember her." His voice was flat. "That doesn't mean they don't miss her." Dmitry's jaw tightened. "Miss Morrison, I appreciate your insights, but my children's emotional state is not—" "Papa?" Mira interrupted quietly. "Miss Elena wasn't being mean. She was being nice. She told us Mama would be proud of us." Dmitry looked at his daughter, then at Elena. Something complicated passed across his face. "She would be," he said finally. "She'd think you were perfect." The rest of dinner passed in awkward silence. When it ended, Dmitry excused himself to his office. The children went to their room for quiet time, and Elena found herself alone in the living room, staring out at Moscow's skyline and wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. "Miss Morrison?" She turned to find Dmitry standing in the doorway, 2 glasses of wine in his hands. "Peace offering," he said, extending one. "I was short with you at dinner." "You were protecting your children." "I was being an ass." He moved to the window, standing beside her. "The truth is, I don't know how to talk to them about their mother. Every parenting book says honesty, but how do you honestly tell 3 5-year-olds that their mother died bringing them into the world? That every time I look at them, I see her, that they're the most beautiful and most painful reminder of what I lost." Elena's chest tightened. "You tell them she loved them. That's all they need to know." "Is it?" Dmitry turned to face her, and up close, Elena could see the grief etched into every line of his face. "Because they've spent 18 months driving away every person who tries to get close. They've terrorized nannies and teachers and anyone who might care about them. And I don't know if it's grief or anger or fear of being abandoned again." "It's all of those things," Elena said quietly. "They're children. They can't process complex emotions, so they act out. They test boundaries. They make people leave before they can be left." "You sound like you understand that." I do. Why? Elena hesitated. Then, because he'd been honest, she decided to be honest too. My mother left when I was 5. No explanation. One day she was there, the next she was gone. My father said she had to go away for work. Then he said she was sick. Then he stopped mentioning her at all. I spent years trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently to make her stay. Dimitri's expression softened. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm telling you this because I know what your children are feeling, that desperate hope that if you just wait long enough, test people long enough, maybe the person you're missing will come back. But they won't. And eventually, you have to decide whether to keep pushing people away or let someone new in. Dimitri stared at her for a long moment. You're not like the other nannies. I'm broke and desperate. That makes me different. No, he said quietly. You understand them. You see them as people, not problems to be managed. Before Elena could respond, a small voice interrupted. Miss Elena? They turned to find Alexei standing in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit, his eyes wide and scared. I had a bad dream, he whispered. Elena's heart melted. She set down her wine and walked over, crouching to his level. Do you want to tell me about it? There was a lady, Alexei said, his voice trembling. She was singing. She had a nice voice, but then she disappeared and I couldn't find her, and I was all alone. Elena looked at Dimitri, whose face had gone pale. That's his mother's voice, Dimitri said hoarsely. I play them recordings sometimes. Katerina used to sing. I didn't think they'd remember. They don't remember, Elena said gently, but they feel it. Come here, sweet boy. She picked up Alexei, who wrapped his arms around her neck and buried his face in her shoulder. It's okay to be scared. Dreams can be scary, but you're not alone. Your papa is here, your brother and sister are here, and I'm here. Promise? Alexei whispered. Promise. Dimitri watched this exchange with an expression Elena couldn't read. Then he stepped forward and gently took his son from her arms. Come on, little man, let's get you back to bed. As he carried Alexei away, the boy looked over his father's shoulder at Elena. You smell like the lady from my dreams, he said sleepily, like flowers and something sweet. Elena's blood ran cold. You smell like the lady from my dreams? A 5-year-old who never met his mother recognizes Elena's scent? Something is very wrong here. Something Elena doesn't even know yet. The question is, will she run, or will she finally understand why the children look at her like they know her? Share your tout on the comment section. Like if your heart is racing right now. Share this with your group chat immediately. Subscribe because here is the revelation. Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in her enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Alexei's words over and over. You smell like the lady from my dreams. It was coincidence. It had to be. 5-year-olds had vivid imaginations. They confused dreams with reality. It meant nothing. Except Dimitri had looked at her like he knew her. The children had instantly trusted her, and there was that locked room they were forbidden to enter. At 2 a.m., Elena gave up on sleep. She pulled on a robe and crept into the hallway, her bare feet silent on the heated floors. The penthouse was dark except for the Moscow skyline glowing through the windows. She moved past the children's room, their door slightly ajar, all 3 of them sleeping in one bed despite having their own, and stopped at the locked door. Up close, she could see the keypad was sophisticated, probably biometric, definitely not something she could bypass. But maybe she didn't have to. Elena pressed her ear against the door, listening. Nothing, just silence and the faint hum of climate control. Looking for something, Miss Morrison? She spun around, heart hammering. Dimitri stood in the shadows, wearing pajama pants and nothing else, his chest bare, his gray eyes reflecting the city lights. I couldn't sleep, Elena said, trying to sound casual. I was just exploring. This door is off limits. Your children mentioned that. And yet here you are?
He moved closer and Elena resisted the urge to step back. "What are you really doing here, Elena?" "I told you—" "No." His voice was soft but dangerous. "I mean here, in my home, with my children. 47 nannies quit, but you stay. My children trust you immediately when they've never trusted anyone. And tonight, my son said you smell like his mother." Elena's mouth went dry. "That's impossible. I never met your wife." "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure. Mr. Volkov, I understand you're grieving, but I'm not your dead wife's ghost. I'm just a broke woman who needed a job." Dmitri studied her face in the darkness. "Then why can't I shake the feeling that I know you?" "I don't know," Elena said honestly. "Maybe you saw me somewhere before. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe—" Her eyes landed on something on the table, a small leather book, different from the journals. It was worn, the cover cracked with age, and on the front, in faded gold letters, "Adoption Records, St. Petersburg, 1994. Elena's world tilted. "What's that?" she whispered. Dmitri followed her gaze. "Katerina's adoption papers. She was adopted as an infant. It was something she struggled with her whole life, not knowing where she came from. She spent years trying to find her biological family, but the records were sealed." Elena's hands shook as she reached for the book. "Can I see it?"
"Why?" "Please, just please." Dmitri watched her carefully, but nodded. Elena opened the book with trembling fingers. Name at birth, unknown. Date of birth, March 15th, 1994. Place of birth, St. Petersburg Hospital No. 7. Mother's name, Morrison, Catherine. Father's name, unknown. Notes, infant abandoned at hospital. Mother's ID recovered at scene. Twin sister also abandoned, fate unknown. Elena's knees buckled. Dmitri caught her before she hit the ground. "Elena, what's wrong?" She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because she knew that date, knew that hospital, knew that name. Catherine Morrison was her mother, which meant Katerina Volkova, Dmitri's dead wife, the mother of these children, was her twin sister, the sister she'd never known existed, the dead wife, the mother the children miss, the woman in all those photographs. Elena is their biological aunt. That's why they recognize her scent. That's why they trust her instantly. That's why Dmitri stares at her like he knows her, because she has her dead sister's face. Comment if you saw this coming. Share, your friends need this story. Subscribe, as the story is getting more interesting. "I need to tell you something," Elena whispered. They were sitting on the floor of the shrine room, Elena still clutching the adoption papers, Dmitri watching her with concern and confusion. "Tell me what?" Elena took a shaking breath. "My mother's name was Catherine Morrison. She was a prostitute in St. Petersburg, drug addict. When I was 5, she left me with my father and disappeared. I never knew why, never knew where she went. My father wouldn't talk about her." She looked up at Dmitri, tears streaming down her face. "But I was born on March 15th, 1994, at St. Petersburg Hospital No. 7, and I never knew. I never knew I had a twin sister." The silence was deafening. Dmitri's face went through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, realization, and finally something that looked like devastated understanding. "You're Katerina's twin," he said hoarsely. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. When I saw the job posting, I just needed work. I never imagined—" Her voice broke. "I never imagined I was walking into my dead sister's life." Dmitri stood abruptly, pacing the room. "This is impossible. You can't be." But even as he said it, he was looking at the photographs on the wall, comparing Elena's face to Katerina's. The same bone structure, the same eyes, the same mouth. Not identical. They'd lived different lives, worn different expressions, but unmistakably related. "The children," he said suddenly, "they recognized you, not consciously, but on some level." "DNA memory," Elena whispered. "I read about it once, how babies can recognize biological relatives by scent, by pheromones. They know I'm family even though they've never met me." Dmitri sank back down beside her. Katerina spent her whole life looking for her biological family.
She hired investigators. She petitioned courts. She dreamed about finding a sister or brother or anyone who shared her blood. And now you're here, and she'll never know. They sat in heavy silence, both grieving the cruel timing of the universe. I should leave, Elena said finally. This is too complicated, too painful. You need someone who isn't a ghost of your dead wife. Don't. Dimitri's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Please. Elena, the children need you. They've bonded with you in a way they never bonded with anyone else. Because you're family. Because on some deep biological level, they know you belong with them. But they don't know the truth. And when they find out, we'll tell them, together, but not yet. His eyes bored into hers. Give me 2 weeks, the trial period you agreed to. Let's see if this can work. Because Katerina would want this. She'd want her children to know their aunt, to have you in their lives. How do you know what she'd want? Because I knew her better than anyone. His voice softened, and she used to say that family wasn't just blood, it was choice. It was showing up. It was love. You've shown up for her children without even knowing they were your nephews and niece. That's exactly the kind of person she'd want in their lives. Elena wiped her tears. What if I can't do this? What if it's too hard, seeing her in everything? Then you'll leave and we'll figure something else out. But I'm asking you to try, for the children, for Katerina, and maybe, he hesitated, maybe for yourself. Because you just found out you had a sister, and she's gone. But her children are here, and they need you. Elena looked at the photographs on the wall, at Katerina's face, her face, smiling with joy and hope and love, at the journals written to children who would grow up without their mother, at the shrine to a woman who died bringing life into the world. Okay, she whispered, 2 weeks, but we tell them the truth if I stay. No secrets, no lies. Agreed. Dimitri stood and extended his hand. Elena took it, and he pulled her to her feet. For a moment, they stood too close, his hand still holding hers, both of them processing the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. For what it's worth, Dimitri said quietly, I'm glad you're here. Katerina would be glad too. You don't know me. No, but you're her sister. That's enough. The next week was surreal. Elena fell into a rhythm with the children. Mornings were for lessons. She was surprisingly good at teaching them art and music. Afternoons were for play, elaborate games that involved the children's creativity and Elena's willingness to be silly. Evenings were for stories and quiet time before bed. And every night, Alexei would ask her to stay until he fell asleep. You make the bad dreams go away, he'd say, holding her hand.
Elena's heart broke and healed simultaneously every single time. Dimitri watched all of this with an expression she couldn't decipher. He'd come home from work and find Elena teaching the children to paint or building elaborate block towers with Luca, or reading to all three of them in a cuddle pile on the couch. He'd stand in the doorway, silent, and Elena would feel his eyes on her. Sometimes she'd catch him staring at her face, comparing her features to his memories of Katerina. Sometimes he'd say something, a story about his wife, a memory of her laugh, and then stop, as if remembering Elena wasn't her. It was painful and beautiful and so complicated. On day 8, Mira asked the question Elena had been dreading. They were in the art room, painting self-portraits. Mira had been unusually quiet, focused on her canvas with unusual intensity. Finally, she set down her brush and turned to Elena. Miss Elena, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Do you have a sister? Elena's hands froze. Why do you ask? Because, Mira bit her lip. Because you look like someone in the pictures of Mama. Luca noticed it first, but we didn't want to say anything because it might make Papa sad. Luca and Alexei had stopped painting too, both watching Elena carefully. This was it, decision time. She could lie, could deflect, could wait until the 2 weeks were up to tell them. Or she could trust them with the truth. Come with me, Elena said quietly. There's something I need to show you. She led them to the shrine room. Dmitri had given her access, told her she could go there whenever she needed to feel close to the sister she'd never known. She'd been several times, reading Katerina's journals, trying to understand the woman who'd shared her DNA but not her life. The children had never been inside. They stood in the doorway, eyes wide, taking in the photographs and baby clothes and all the physical evidence of their mother's existence. "This is Mama's room," Alexei whispered. "Yes," Elena said. "Your papa kept it exactly as it was, because he loved her very much, and because he wanted you to know her, even though you never got to meet her." She knelt down, gathering all three children close. "I need to tell you something important, something your papa and I discovered last week." Three pairs of gray eyes fixed on her, solemn and intelligent. "Your mama had a twin sister, her biological twin. They were separated when they were babies, and they never found each other. Your mama spent her whole life looking for her sister, but she never knew where to find her." "What's her name, the twin sister?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Me, I'm the twin sister. Your mama was my sister, and I never knew until I found her adoption papers in this room." Silence. Complete, devastating silence. Then Alexei launched himself at Elena, wrapping his arms around her neck. "Your mama's sister?" "Yes, baby, I'm your aunt, your biological aunt. That's why you smell like her. That's why we knew you. That's why you look like the pictures," Mira added, tears streaming down her face. "Your family, real family." All three children were crying now, clinging to Elena. And she was crying too, holding these children who were her blood, her sister's legacy, her family. "Does this mean you'll stay?" Alexei asked, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "Forever?" Elena looked up to find Dmitri standing in the doorway. She hadn't heard him come home. He was watching the four of them with an expression that looked like grief and joy and something else she couldn't name. Elena started. "Please stay," Mira begged. "Please, we love you, and Mama would want you here. I know she would." "She would," Dmitri said quietly, stepping into the room. Katerina dreamed about finding her sister, and now her sister has found her children. That's not coincidence, that's fate. He crouched down beside them, this makeshift family united by loss and biology and something that felt like destiny. "If you stay," Elena said to Dmitri, his eyes serious, "it won't be as nanny. Your family, the children's aunt, you'll have equal say in their upbringing, equal authority. You'll be," he hesitated, "you'll be their mother figure if you want to be." "I want to be," Elena whispered. "I want to stay." The children erupted in cheers, hugging her, each other, and their father. And for the first time since Katerina's death, the shrine room wasn't filled with grief. It was filled with hope. "If you're not crying right now, you're lying." She stayed. The broke, desperate woman who just needed a job stayed as their aunt, as their family. But here's the question. What happens when aunt starts feeling like something more? When Dmitri looks at her and sees not just his dead wife's twin, but Elena herself. 6 months later, the children call her mom. Dmitri can't stop staring. And one night, everything changes. This is the happily ever after they all deserve. But it's complicated, beautiful, real. Smash like if this hit you in the feels. Comment your emotional status. We're all crying. Share with everyone who loves found family. Subscribe to see how it all ended. Elena looked up from her laptop. She'd started working from home again, doing freelance design, and sighed. "Children, what have we discussed about sharing?" "That we're supposed to," all three chorused, not sounding the least bit sorry. And we're not doing it. So fix it or no dessert tonight."
"That's harsh," Luca grumbled, but he handed Alexei back his paintbrush. Elena smiled and returned to her work. 6 months in, and she still had to pinch herself sometimes. This was her life now. These were her children, not biologically hers, but hers in every way that mattered. This penthouse was her home. This family was hers. And Dmitri was complicated. He'd kept his promise. She wasn't the nanny. She was family. She had her own bank account with a trust fund he'd set up. She'd protested. He'd insisted.
She had equal say in all decisions about the children. She attended parent-teacher conferences and doctor's appointments. She was listed as their legal guardian in case anything happened to him. She was, for all intents and purposes, their mother. The children had started calling her mom around month 3. They still talked about Katerina. They looked at her pictures, read her journals, kept her memory alive. But Elena was the one who kissed scraped knees and helped with nightmares and showed up every single day. And Dmitri had been nothing but respectful, professional, appropriate, which was driving Elena slowly insane, because somewhere between month 2 and month 4, she'd fallen in love with him. It wasn't intentional, it wasn't even smart, but watching him be a father, patient and loving and devoted, had done something to her heart. The way he read bedtime stories in different voices, the way he'd rearrange his entire schedule to attend Mira's art show or Luca's robotics competition, the way he'd hold Alexei during thunderstorms, whispering reassurances in Russian. He was a good man, a good father, and Elena wanted him in a way that felt both inevitable and impossible. "Miss Morrison?" She looked up to find Dmitri standing in the doorway of her office. Yes, she had an office now, converted from a guest room. He was in his usual work uniform, expensive suit, perfect hair, those gray eyes that saw too much. "You haven't called me that in months," Elena said. "Haven't I?" He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. "What do I call you?" "Usually just Elena, sometimes the woman who keeps my children from burning down the penthouse." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We need to talk." Elena's stomach dropped. That sounds ominous. It's not. Or maybe it is, I'm not sure. He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly uncertain. It was so unlike him that Elena stood. "What's wrong?" "I'm sending you away." The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" "Not permanently," he said quickly. "Just for a week. I've booked you a vacation. Spa resort, full amenities, all expenses paid. The children will stay with me and Irina." "Why?" Elena demanded. "What did I do wrong?" "Nothing. You've done nothing wrong. You're perfect. That's the problem." "I don't understand." Dmitri moved closer, and Elena's breath caught. "I need you gone for a week because I need space to think, to figure out if what I'm feeling is real or just convenient." "What you're feeling?" Elena whispered. "I'm in love with you," Dmitri said, and the world stopped. "I've been in love with you for months, but I don't know if I'm in love with you or if I'm in love with the ghost of my wife. You look so much like her. You fit into this family so perfectly, and I can't tell if what I feel is real or if I'm just trying to resurrect something I lost." Elena couldn't breathe. "What about me?" Elena's voice shook. "What if I don't want space? What if I'm in love with you too, and the idea of leaving, even for a week, feels like abandonment?" Dmitri's eyes widened. "You're in love with me? I've been in love with you since month 3, you emotionally constipated man, but I didn't say anything because I thought you just saw me as your dead wife's replacement." "You're not a replacement." He cupped Elena's face in his hands, his touch gentle. "You could never be a replacement. You're Elena. Brilliant, fierce, patient, kind. You chose to stay when you could have run. You chose to be a mother to children who aren't biologically yours. You chose this family, and I fell in love with those choices. Then why do we need space? Because I need to be sure. I need to know that when I kiss you, and I desperately want to kiss you, it's not Katerina I'm seeing, it's you. Just you." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Okay, 1 week. But Dmitri?" "Yes?" "When you figure it out, you better come for me, because I'm not going to wait around forever." He smiled, a real smile, the kind that transformed his whole face. "I'll come for you, I promise." He came for her on day 5. Elena was in the resort spa, halfway through a massage she couldn't relax enough to enjoy, when her phone buzzed. "I can't do this." "Can't do what?" "Be away from you. The penthouse is too quiet. The children ask for you every 5 minutes, and I miss you. Not Katerina. You." Your terrible jokes, your patience, the way you sing off-key when you cook. I miss Elena. Elena sat up, ignoring the masseuse's protests. So what are you going to do about it? I'm already in the lobby. She ran, still in her spa robe, barefoot, hair dripping from the mineral bath. She ran through the resort until she burst into the lobby and found Dimitri standing there with the children. All three triplets screamed, "Mom!" and launched themselves at her. "You came back," Mira sobbed. "We missed you," Luca said. "Don't leave again," Alexei begged. "I'm not leaving," Elena promised, holding them tight. "I'm right here. I'm always going to be here." She looked up at Dimitri over the children's heads. He was watching her with an expression that was pure love. No grief, no confusion, just love. "I figured it out," Dimitri said. "Took me 5 days instead of 7. I hope that's not a problem." "Depends. What did you figure out?" He walked over, the children parting to let him through. He cupped Elena's face, just like he had 5 days ago. But this time, there was no hesitation. "I figured out that I'm in love with Elena Morrison, not Katerina's sister, not the children's aunt. You, the woman who yells at me when I work too late, who burns dinner but makes it taste good anyway, who reads the same bedtime story 17 times because Alexei asks, who makes my children laugh, who makes me laugh, who makes this house feel like a home." Elena's tears spilled over. Those are some pretty good realizations. "I have one more." He glanced at the children who were watching with barely contained excitement. "Can I ask her?" "Yes!" they shouted. Dimitri pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee, right there in the resort lobby, in front of staff and guests and their 3 children. "Elena Morrison, I know this is fast. I know it's complicated. I know that you came into our lives as a stranger and became family, but I'm asking you to become more than family. Marry me. Not because the children need a mother, they already have you, but because I need you, because I love you, because I want to wake up every morning and see your face, because I want to build a future with you, because—" "Yes," Elena interrupted. "God, yes." He slid the ring on her finger, a simple band with 3 stones, 1 for each child, and stood. And then, finally, he kissed her. It was nothing like kissing Katerina, he'll tell her later. It was entirely, perfectly, completely Elena. The children cheered, the resort guests applauded, and in the chaos and joy, Elena thought about the job posting that had changed her life. Nanny needed, must be brave. She'd been brave, and it had led her here, to family, to love, to home, to the children who were her sister's legacy and her own heart, to the man who'd learned to love again, to the life she'd never imagined but couldn't imagine living without. From broke woman taking a desperate job, to mom, to wife, to family. She walked into a mafia boss's house as a stranger. She stayed as an aunt. She became a mother. And she ended up finding the family she'd been missing her whole life. Smash that like if this gave you all the feels. Comment your favorite moment from this entire story. Share with everyone who needs a good cry. Subscribe for more stories about found family, second chances, and love that heals.